this is Garrett from CSI. Today we're going to talk about all the different options for your quarter midget shock. It can be a bit confusing for the novice handler, and so we're going to talk about why there's different options. So the first option is we have 3 different rod ends: standard length, medium, which is plus 1/2 of an inch, and then our tall, which is plus 1 inch. So why would we have different length rod ends? Well, the main difference is when you go from asphalt to dirt, the cars are much higher in the air on the dirt, and you'll need a taller rod end typically. There's also a few types of chassis that their shock mounting point is different, where you'd have to run a tall eye. Like some of the Nervos need a tall eye on the right rear. Stanley had a bird cage in the early 2000s that took a tall eye on the left rear. So if you have any questions as far as what length eyelet you need for your shock, reach out to us. We have a pretty good little chart to go off of. The next option would be, why do we have a flat spring perch and then a cone or a raised spring perch? Well, the flat perch was all everybody used for a long time, but then there was certain axles, front axles, where the gussets were in the way and they would hit this flat perch. So we did a raised perch to give a little more clearance. So that taper on the raised perch cleared the gussets on the front axles. So standard, what we would send out would be a shock with a standard rod end and a raised perch, because the raised perch works all the time. So the only time where you would run into an issue with a raised perch was if you had a tall 5-inch spring. I've got an Eibach and a hypercoil here, but if you had a tall 5-inch spring and you were trying to get your car really low, that raised perch will bring the spring up farther on the shock, and you might run into room where you can't get your ride height adjuster nut far enough. That would be an instance where you would have to go to a flat perch or a shorter spring. The last thing is the spring spacer. So what is this for? When running these short springs, these 3.5 inch or the red hot Tanner springs, or even 3 inch, a lot of times you can't get your ride height adjuster nut down far enough to get the ride height you need. So if you put that spring spacer on there, now you can get your ride height adjuster back up in the center of the shock body. So we have these spring spacers for that. So that's kind of the basics of all the different options for the quarter midget shock, whether it's one of ours or somebody else's. They have different length rod ends, different style shock spring perches, and it's for the different size springs and the different types of chassis, so we can kind of have all the bases covered. So the main difference is, once you're set up, if you go from asphalt to dirt, oftentimes you're going to have that taller rod end to work on the dirt.